Hello, welcome to the Marriage Underdogs Radio Show podcast. My name is Chris A. Matthews, and I'm here once again with another phenomenal guest. I would like to introduce you all to Randi Rotwein, who is the private practice owner of Randi Rotwein-Pivnick out of Arizona, and she also is licensed to practice for those that live in California as well. Welcome. How are you doing, Randi?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Man, I'm so glad to have you on. Before the show, I was just talking about the diversity of our field as LMFTs. We come in so many different forms and shapes across the country, and our experiences tend to usually come by way of what really got us into the field. I always like to start with what was the motivation that got you specifically into the field of LMFT? Because there are a lot of different disciplines you could have chosen.
So I think my story is a little probably unique to others. My first degree was in special education, and I was a special ed teacher, but I was a physical person, and so I wanted to work Special Olympics. And I did that a little bit, but back then it wasn't a big thing. So I got out of that and did some odd jobs, and it was right around the time that the fitness industry was starting to boom. And I got, as a side hustle, started teaching aerobics and then became a personal trainer, got involved in that, loved it because I got to see people improve physically, but also mentally, because I'm a firm believer in the mind and the body.
Absolutely
And
connected.
I would be, yes, huge. And I would talk to them and they would get into their personal business. And sometimes I trained husband and wives, and I'd hear about what was going on. And down the road, years and years later, a client of mine who was a little bit older than mine had gone back to school to become an LMFT. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know, I had never given it any thought. And when she said that, I thought, well, I'm counseling people all day long while I'm training them. I might as well do this. Went back to school, got my master's, and that was my first. I went back to school, got my exercise science degree to be the trainer. Mm-hmm. Then I went back to school, became an LMFT, and here I am, like 30 years later, still doing it. Right. I love helping people and improve the quality of their lives. So it's very rewarding.
I love your story because you didn't just stop with the physical education when it comes to the exercise science. You went into the mental component, and now you're able to holistically put both together and help a lot of people. I want to change gears a little bit and just dive right into it. For those that are listening, you're aware that our show targets the marriage underdog, and that's usually the couple or the relationship partner that's in a tough season. And we bring these experts on, like Randi, to give expert advice, opinion, information to help you guys in those seasons. And one area in particular that I want to make sure that we don't leave out are those who are finding love or who are dating or who are married in their 60s or older, right? So Randi, can you share about the unique challenges as you go through the different life cycles and you now are in that age where you're touching retirement? What are some of the unique challenges and opportunities that individuals in that age group need to know about marriage and relationships, that landscape of dating and finding love?
Well, so I think for anybody who is in that age group, they will find if they're back in the dating world, it's very, very different than when they were in their 20s and 30s.
With the online dating and all of the different...
Oh my gosh, yes. And so first of all, dealing with that and it's very, there's a lot of people that don't want to take the time to get to know you. Mm-hmm. You know, quick, I want to
slide to the left, slide to the right.
Right, yeah. Right. And so people are faced with that challenge, as well as in their 60s, whatnot. You're looking for something different than when you're in your 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s or closer to the 60s. But so there's that challenge, as well as being able to find somebody that you could, I think it's more important to find somebody that you can just connect with and let the relationship grow, which sometimes is hard for people because you're already in your 60s. So you think,
you're like trying to speed it up.
Right. But I encourage people to get into groups that interest you, because then you're meeting people without just, I want to meet the right person.
Mhm.
It gives you the opportunity to meet other like-minded people and get to know people and build friendships. And every time you build a friendship, it opens the door of possibility to meet somebody as a forever partner.
And I appreciate that advice because that's actually good regardless of what age you are, because when you're around groups in like-minded spaces, then you're more in alignment with people who blend and gel better with you. Now, for those couples that have already found marriage and they're in their 60s, and it could be different stages. It could be a person who was married for several years and their spouse passed away or they divorced, and they're now in a new marriage. Can you talk about what those adults in those 60 and up populations would want to consider? Like, what are some of the issues that their marriages and relationships may be encountering at that age?
Well, I think first of all, there's a good chance that you're blending families,
Mm.
and that can create problems if you're not like-minded. And I think it's an important conversation to have, if in fact there are, children getting blended. And it doesn't even matter if they're adult children, because you need to talk about what are your expectations from your partner. And
Absolutely. Holidays. Now you have integration of grandchildren. And then you all have gotten to know each other, but doesn't mean the families have gotten to know each other. So when you talk about blended, tell us a little bit more about some of the things you may have seen that came up comes up in sessions with the blended family populations.
well, you're dealing with, well, first of all, if there's an ex-wife, you're dealing with, or ex-husband,
Yeah.
you're dealing with that. But
Spouse, yeah.
also, are you accepted by the children? Do they welcome you? Or are you welcoming to them? And how do you make your relationship the priority? And that you're there for each other, but you also respect what the other person's needs are with the relationships that they already have.
Now,
And I,
what do our listeners do with that, right? Like, I'm sure someone might be hearing this show and they're saying, "Okay, well, I'm married. I now have a blended family. Um, I feel like my partner may keep me away when there are events with the ex-wife and the children, or I might not feel as comfortable." How can couples uh, go across that wall and connect with the blended families?
so I think first and foremost is to be able to have honest conversations
Mhm.
about it. And what are my expectations and what are your expectations?
Mhm.
And it's not about being right. It's about validating hearing what the other person's saying, but creating compromise.
Mhm.
Um, I think what's really important in a relationship, though, is for your partner not to feel left out and pushed aside, to find a way that you can make it work for both of you. And in the situation where there's an ex-wife or an ex-husband, is to be able to incorporate your partner in that, but not create conflict. I mean, to remember that you're in a partnership, and it's not always your way, but you're in a partnership and you're supporting each other.
And what you're describing sounds like the openness, the involvement. When there's openness and there's involvement, then there's going to be less conflict because the partner doesn't feel like there's a competition at that point. So you're already choosing your partner first, and you're inviting them to the table when there are conversations to be had with the ex or with the children. So they become an extension of you and a part of you. And it's not like you're trying to hide something. And I think that couples or relationship partners, for that matter, will be guilty of hiding, thinking they're protecting. Can you talk about the value of being open instead of believing or potentially thinking that if I don't invite my partner, then that's going to be more helpful? How can that actually be harmful, not inviting your partner or attempting to keep things away?
Well, you hit, yeah, a very important message there, because when you do that, then it creates secrets and
Mm,
betrayal. And the foundation of any healthy relationship is trust. And now if you're hiding things from me and not telling me things, now I'm not trusting you. And even if you're saying it's because you didn't want to hurt me or protect me, I'm not going to buy that. Better, you should come to me and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I'm thinking of doing. Or do you want to come? Or, this is where I'm at with it, and have a conversation with it. I think it's really important in relationships with pretty much any kind of plans to share that with your partner. Hey, I'm thinking of doing this. Not that you're asking for permission, but you're a partnership.
right.
And so
Absolutely.
be
And
open.
it may not be asking for permission, it's asking for invitation. I'm asking to involve you in this so we can make the mutual decision together. And I know that we're in this day and age where you look at gender roles, and based on our family of origin, if you come from a household that may have had a dominant gender role, where it be a father or a mother, then our own stuff can get in the way as well. I mean, I've seen couples, I'm sure you have too. It may be one partner saying, "You're not going to be the boss of me," and it's not really the boss of you. It's more about how do we create that space to give each other permission to be involved, right? Like, I want you to be involved. I don't want you to feel like you have to take something or I have to give something. It's a mutual connection because we both want to be in the center together. Can you talk about after marriage, what some of those power struggles could potentially look like for couples that are wanting to turn I into we?
So if I'm understanding what you're saying, is so now they're married and they're used to being independent, and now
Yeah.
they've got to, right. And so, some of the struggles, are if you're used to being the boss of you, you make your decisions and you don't, and certainly if you don't think it impacts the other person at all, you don't include them. And it creates a lot of conflict in couples, because oftentimes it's seen as being left out and not connecting with me, or I'm not important enough for you to even involve me in that. And so I think it's really important that first and foremost, have healthy communication, and again, to have that conversation of what my expectation is. This is what the relationship looks like to me. And we need to talk about that. Oftentimes people jump into a relationship, get married, and don't even think about, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
What are my expectations? And then they hit this wall.
Right. And wonder what happened. And
Right.
so give us a couple more, because I'm hearing expectations. Because a lot of times we'll listen to experts talk about relationships and everyone says communicate. Even our couples, they'll come into counseling now, and the first thing they'll say is, I want to communicate better. But no one's really breaking that down. You did a great job just now talking about expectations, and you broke down the importance of how expectation creates connection. Talk to us a little bit more about other strategies that can help couples communicate better.
So I think it's really important. Well, you made a point, Chris, earlier about, depending on your family of origin and what your role is. And I am a firm believer that we're products of our childhood. That's our first message that we get. And we get whether it's what the role is, or I'm not lovable, or whatever stories we make up. And then we bring those into our relationships. And we have to, I often will say to my clients, okay, is this the way you're reacting? Is it your stuff, the couple stuff, or is that your own stuff? Is it your story? We create stories, and certainly stories as our relationship evolves, and then we react to those stories, right? So if hypothetically, and this is not true, I think that my husband doesn't respect me for whatever reason, and then he's late and doesn't call me, I'm furious, and my story is he doesn't care about me. He doesn't respect me. He isn't right, because that's my story that I've created, instead of having a conversation with him. Hey, when you do this, this is the message I get. Is that what you want me? Is that the message I'm supposed to get? Or tell me what's going on, or please don't do that.
Absolutely. I'm listening to you, and we can get into talking shop. You did a great job of breaking down one of the five axioms of communication just now. Like, you really pulled that together. I was listening to you. That's one of the joys of being on with fellow LMFTs. And then you talked about the power of how a lot of us practice by way of using that genogram to determine where some of those attachment wounds and just how the relationships that we developed with family members have progressed throughout our lives, and what they do, or what they look like when they show up in our relationships. And you really highlight that. One of the things that came to mind just now when you were speaking too, it always sounds like there are three people in the relationship. It's you, the relationship itself, and then your partner. So you just did a great job by helping our audience understand. They have to ask, okay, which one is it? Is it me? Is it both of us? Or is it them? And where's that story coming from? That was great. When you think about keeping connection alive, because when we get married, I use the term, there's this gravitational pull that's always attempting to separate couples. The same way gravity keeps us on the ground, there's some type of gravitational pull always attempting to break couples up. It could be a parent, it could be a job, it could be just be menopause, it could be a midlife crisis. Something's always working to break that couple up. How do couples fight against that gravitational pull and stay connected as one? What are some tips that you could help us out with?
Well, what's interesting to me is when people first meet, they spend a lot of time making the other person feel wonderful and special, and showing how wonderful they are because they make them feel so wonderful, making them a priority. And then we get married and we relax. We figure, okay, we're together now. But that's when you really have to go above and beyond, to make your partner feel special, to make them first, to make time to connect on a daily basis, because otherwise you get caught up in all just the daily grind and it just, little by little, we start to grow apart, or things get in the way. Mm-hmm. So I tell my clients, you need to make time on a daily basis. If it's 10 minutes, just connect. We're all busy. Connect, check in with each other. And then on a weekly basis, if you have time, go on a date, create a date. I have an assignment I give my clients that's called the surprise date. And I tell them that once a month, each of them have to plan a date. Don't tell your partner what it is. Just tell them what time they have to be there, what they have to wear if it's something special, and go out and create newness and connection. And you have to keep dating each other is really what it's all about.
And I love the spontaneity of the surprise date, right? Because it shows so many different levels, because the goal of giving your partner an experience, we hear the phrase all the time, it's the thought that counts, right? It's the thought that you put into developing the experience your partner is going to like. It's not just the thought that you did it and they're supposed to take whatever you give them. And I believe that's always misconceived, that's misconstrued when we hear the thought that counts. And what you're describing is when you do that surprise date, there has to be thought and intentionality in giving your partner an experience they may like. And that is done when you take time to listen and learn who your partner is. And that's going to change through the life cycle of the relationship. So what I'm hearing you say is that we not only have to continue to date, we have to continue to be updated on who our partner is and who they're becoming.
Absolutely. Right.
Randi, that's just amazing. I wanted to ask you too, I know our time is running out. Are there, so a couple of things. Are there any products that you have available, or if you're taking new clients, how can clients get to you? I just want to make sure that you're accessible to those that want to learn more about what you're doing, and just to give information on how they can reach you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I am taking new clients. All of my work is telehealth. So if you're anywhere in California or anywhere in Arizona, I can work with you. The best way to do is I have some websites, but you can give me a call. My number is 480-707-8291. And just give me a call and we can talk for a little while, see if we're a good fit, and then I can set you up with an appointment.
Definitely. I also think about how it's really important to have the opening, right? That initial greeting and then departure. If you had to leave the couples listening with just one small piece of advice or suggestion or information, what would that be? And that's how I would like to close this episode out.
I would don't take your partner or the people you love for granted. Put the energy into it. It doesn't take time to let somebody know that they're important to you, that you care about them, that you're there for them. And that can keep a relationship going for a really long time, even in the roughest of times, is I'm there. How can I help?
That was beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that information. I'm sure that someone listening today needed to hear what you had to say. I'm just thankful for the opportunity you chose to be on our show. For those that have been tuning in, you've listened to a masterclass delivered by Randi Rotwein, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist out of Arizona and practicing out of California by way of telehealth. She's provided information. We'll also put that in the show notes as well. And for those that are wanting to learn more about our podcast, please Google Marriage Underdogs, or you can go to marriageunderdogs.com. The episodes are played on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. I'm your host, Chris A. Matthews. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to bringing you a new episode every Tuesday.
Thank you for having me. This was
Thank
wonderful.
you.